I was really wanting to know why people were interested in things like art, science, and why people who maybe not be interested in them should be interested in them. Why it matters.
You are listening to And If Love Remains, a unique show spotlighting people, ideas, science, culture, and art. Your host,
Mike Leavitt.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the great podcast in the sky, And If Love Remains. I am your host, not Mike Leavitt. We are doing a little bit of a Father's Day special today, where I'm going to flip the script. My name is Steven, I'm Mike's son, and I'll be hosting my dad, the host of this podcast, Mike Leavitt.
And I have no idea what he's going to ask, so this might be an interesting episode. Here we go.
We'll have a little bit of an Ask Me Anything here. I came up with this idea yesterday and pitched it to my dad over text 6 hours ago. So neither of us are completely prepared, but we're ready to get into the magnum opus of what has been my dad's life.
Oh, boy. Here we the magnum opus. Okay. Man, we're getting those expectations, right at the correct level for this.
Exactly. And I feel like it'd be best to just kick things off and start with this podcast, And If Love Remains. What started all of this? What was your inspiration? You've had so many people on the podcast, so many different stories, so many different areas of expertise. So what was the idea behind getting into this kind of a thing?
Well, I think I've kind of had it on my mind for a while. I had a thought of wanting to do it, but I was always busy with different other things. I had people tell me that they thought that I would be good at getting stories out, and I was, pretty decent conversationalist, and I was able to at least ask some interesting questions. So I had it in my mind, but I guess what really got what expedited things was the pandemic. As you know, I primarily make a living as a musician and teaching, and when the pandemic hit, those two things kind of went bye-bye. And so I had to figure out at least something to do to keep me sane. And so I started it, didn't really know what I was doing. And you're right. I've been really incredibly blessed having people like you on, people like, Michael Ward, Joe Wolverton, Elias, of course, man, he's been such a blessing to this podcast. People like, I can name a bunch of people, experts in all kinds of fields that I've been really blessed to have on, and talk about really interesting aspects. And I think the reason, I guess I was really wanting to know why people were interested in things like art, science, and why people who maybe not be interested in them should be interested in them. Why it matters. Why do details matter? Why do things in science matter? Why do the arts matter? Why does music matter? Because there's not really a great philosophical answer for those things. But I think when you talk to experts and you see the things that they're excited about, it really inspires you to both become an expert at something, become really good at something, and it also inspires you to understand the world, a wider world, and a better place.
And you ask the questions that open up that wider world and better place to so many people, and all four of us. Just kidding. Right? And that's one thing that really has stood out to me as I listen to your podcast is the questions that you ask, even when you don't have a complete understanding of their field, and because it's not your expertise, your questions really open people up to give us that detail-oriented, that very nuanced opinion of things that they discuss. And one thing that struck me coming out of that is it's almost like you're opening up a world, other people's world, that you also open up for your own world. So that was a little bit of a
Oh
was a
no,
little bit
that
of a
I think you're right.
stretch there.
I have learned so much from, I try to read when Murray Pittock was on and we talked about Scotland. I read through his book. When Michael Ward was on and talking about C.S. Lewis, I read his book. When Scott Horton was on and he had his, I tried to read these books, and I've gained so much knowledge from going through these books and getting a greater appreciation for both the work that they do, but also the fields that they're in. And it is kind of like it's kind of like a pattern. It's like I start to see things that in my work and in music, because that's my primary, like I said, that's primarily what I'm have done in my life. But literature, philosophy, science, those things, there's a lot of things that work together. And but oftentimes, because we're so specialized, we don't see the connections.
You talk about your field being music, and for those who don't have any personal experience with my dad, he is a music fanatic. He is always having headphones on, is always listening to something, and is also a great seeker of knowledge. Since as long as I can remember, he's always been listening to podcasts and talks and trying to find out different things. And so my question is, how have you grown? How has your appreciation for those things grown, or how has your perspective changed since that 2017, 2018, that kind of person that you were? And then through the pandemic, how has that opened up for you?
It's kind of hard to separate. Like, I don't know if you're asking like specifically about things on the podcast or life in general.
Either. I feel like one feeds into the other.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think I have become more sure about fewer things, but those fewer things I'm more sure about. In other words, like I think a lot of things that I thought I was secure in my knowledge about have become less so. And at the same time, I think the things that really matter to me, that are close to me, and that I think are super important, I've become more sure of, more secure. I think I've definitely changed. I think a lot of us have changed over the pandemic, as I've seen the patterns that we've seen in history kind of happen before our eyes. I've said a few times that it's fascinating to watch the fall of Rome. And that's kind of what we're in the midst of. It feels like, but it is fascinating and it is exciting. It's an exciting time, and there's lots of opportunities for good and for truth and the beautiful during these exciting times.
What's something that has mattered less the more time has gone by?
I think dogmatism in all its forms. I think the idea that like I think I think the bigger stuff, meaning the stuff that I don't have control over. How good is America? What is this the land of the free? What religion? What different things about what does religion really mean? All those things I think have mattered less, and it's more about relationships and more about both with God, with my family, and also I feel like being more secure in or more more sure about. Well, we could. I grew up LDS. I grew up as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I still believe in that. But the things that I'm sure of are that God is our Father. He sent His Son to save us. Joseph Smith is a prophet and the Book of Mormon is true. And everything outside of that, I think, is noise.
If you could, with what you know now and what you understand now and how you've grown both throughout the podcast and throughout the life, is there something that you would change that you've done in the past? Or is there anything that you would shift or make a different decision on?
I don't know. I try not to think in that way because like it doesn't do any good.
Mm-hmm.
I try to think like, because the reality is if I did do something different, then I would be somebody different.
Right.
So, but I do try to learn lessons. I do try to think like, are there things I wish I would have done differently? About the podcast? Is that what you asked? Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
About the podcast, or just how, I guess, to flip the scripts could be, because if we're not going to change our decisions of the past, we learn lessons and we change the decisions of our future.
Yeah.
So what decisions do you have in the works that are you looking to make improvements on?
Well, I think for one thing is, I think consistency with the podcast. I think consistency is the key, and to not try to be over exuberant or over depressed about what you're actually doing. I think setting a realistic goal that you can actually do is important. Whether that's, doing with the podcast, but I do think consistency is a key, making sure that content is going out. And I think, in the future, I'd like to have more collaboration, have more guests on. I've had quite a wide variety of guests from a lot of different fields, but I want to even expand that even more, and have some ideas in mind for that upcoming. And also I think, learning more about how to market it better. Cause I think that's the thing that I struggle with. I'm good at what I'm good at. But I'm not good at what I'm not good at. And one of the things I'm not good at is, getting the word out and getting out to a wider audience. And, so I think that's something that will be improved, here, in the next little bit.
I'm excited to see all the growth that's going to happen and all the guests you have to come on.
Thank you.
It's going to be a wild ride. To expand a little bit further, because it's Father's Day, I feel like we have some necessary questions to answer.
Yeah. Was Bradley Beal a good trade?
Number one, our daily sports intake. Was the trade of Chris Paul and Landry Shamet for Bradley Beal a good trade?
Okay. I think so.
Explain.
I think so. Well, here's the thing. First of all, it's not my money. So I'm not even gonna like care about that, because that's what everyone's talking about. Oh my gosh, there's going to be, payroll for 3 players is going to be $160 million or something for one, so what? That's Matt Eshbia's money. Like, okay, I just care about, is the team going to be good? Does it improve the roster? I think so. I think, I love Chris Paul and I'm super grateful for what he did for the Suns. I think he really improved and I think he gave Booker a harder edge. And not that Booker really needed it, but I think I think Booker having that kind of a mentor for the last 3 years has been really important. Seems to me. I also think, I think Shamet was he wasn't going anywhere and it wasn't working out for whatever reason. I don't know why it wasn't working out here. So I think getting an all-star caliber player in Bradley Beal, an all NBA player caliber wise, and I think is a big upgrade talent wise. I think it also is probably, unless they're going to trade DeAndre Ayton for a point guard, I think Ayton might actually be on the team next year, which I'm not totally sad about. I think the new coach might be a good change for him. I don't know. But my concern is having Devin Booker as point book again. I think he'd be an all-star. I think he would be an all-star caliber point guard. I think he's an MVP caliber 2 guard.
Yeah, that's just his skill set is more for the scoring.
Yeah.
But I mean,
but he can do it, and he'd be, it's Michael Jordan at the point guard.
as long as he keeps working out with Chris Paul, I'm happy.
Yeah.
As long as they keep working out.
But I
together.
think, but to answer your question, is the team better today than it was yesterday? Yeah, I think so.
The one thing that worries me about the Suns is that they have nobody on their roster who's won a championship before, and I feel like has the edge to win a championship by themselves. Like Durant's won it, but he's also getting older, and he needed Steph. So
Yeah, but I think, you know what? But this is where I think Coach is a Vogel.
Yeah.
I think Coach Vogel, I think will help with that for two reasons. Number one, he has won a championship. And number two, he's a defensive minded coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's going to help DeAndre Ayton. And I think just having a defensive minded coach will give you a little bit more of an edge as far as, having that mindset of like, what matters is what happens on defense. You can't control the ball going in the hoop all the time, but you can control your defense and your effort.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see a lot more. Hopefully, we'll see a lot more excitement from DeAndre Ayton when it comes to defending the rim and helping. And
I will say one other thing about Bradley Beal that I'm excited to see is he is a really good 3-point shooter, and I think that is what was missing on this team. Is you had two guys that were absolutely the best in the last 20 years in the mid range, in Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, but you did not have a guy who could consistently hit that corner three. And I think you have that in Bradley Beal now, along with a threat to take it to the rack.
Yeah, I think that's a really important factor of this team that'll really help them. I think honestly, it's mostly just about that edge though to get through the playoffs.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. And staying healthy. I mean, that's been like,
they traded Chris Paul. They'll be good.
I know, right? Seriously though, like 2 years ago, I mean, you could say Giannis was on a mission. The Suns were up 2-0 in that series. And I really believe if Chris Paul didn't get hurt and Devin Booker, I think they win that series. I think last year they were the best team in the league, and I don't know what the heck happened. I mean, I know Chris Paul got hurt, but like that was just a piddle. I will also say, like, now that stuff has come out about Monty Williams, his wife, finding out that his wife got cancer in the middle of the playoffs, like that's devastating. So I don't know how much that affected it, but I do, obviously like last year was not last year, but the year before when they had the best record in the league.
Mm-hmm.
That was a rough go.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how they put it together this year.
Let's see, brother.
Let's see it.
Yeah.
All right.
By the way, we need to do more sports talk. So you want to come on and be the sports guy with me every week?
We should.
Because I think that's one thing this podcast is missing is sports. I have everything else covered. I need sports.
You have everything else covered.
Well, because people ask me, like, what's my podcast about? And I'm like, it's about like stuff I dig. And so Matthew said, so it's like the Everything Bagel. I'm like, well, yeah, kind of.
That's a good podcast name.
That is it. I know, right? TM.
Everything Bagel.
But I think, but I do love sports. I enjoy sports a lot. And so I need you to come on so we can get our sports in.
Absolutely. We'll set up a time.
Right on.
Okay. We're going to do you want to do a couple rapid fire questions, or do you want to get into the weeds a little bit?
We can do some rapid fire, meaning like what comes to my brain.
Just what comes to your mind.
Okay.
Give you a couple.
All right.
A couple things. All right. Favorite kid.
Matthew, of course.
All right.
Or Rachel. I can't decide.
One of the
maybe
two that
Lincoln.
Still live with you. Anyone?
I don't know. Steven, you're pretty all right too.
They're all okay, but we know it's Matthew. Favorite food. Mom's in the kitchen making something, and you hope it is
steak.
Somebody gets you a new shirt. What wild color is it?
Electric blue.
Suspenders or belt?
Belt.
Okay, we're still in the belt phase of his career, ladies and gentlemen. He is not that old yet. Um.
Shorts, actually, but
Okay. Okay.
but if with those two choices, it's a belt.
Besides the piano, if you could have one musical instrument that you could just snap your finger and be able to play, what would it be?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. The Chapman stick.
I have to ask, what is a Chapman stick?
Okay, the Chapman stick is an awesome instrument. It is, I think it's 8. It's like a bass. It's like a long stick.
Okay.
It looks like a bass. It's got a fretboard on it and it's got strings.
Okay.
But you like tap the notes on the fingers, and so you can play like both a bass line and a lead line kind of at the same time. It's a really cool instrument.
It sounds like just the opposite of a bagpipe. So
Yes, it is in fact completely the opposite of a bagpipe. It's a string instrument that you play with your fingers. So yeah, and it's electric. So yeah, it's totally the opposite of a bagpipe.
I'm really good at music, guys. That's my forte. Alrighty. Last question to finish things off, to kind of set the tone before I close us out here. What is the best thing and worst thing, if you want to throw that in there, if you want to give us a little dig about being a father?
Oh man. Okay. I mean, the best thing has been, there's a ton. Like I don't even, so let me,
20 years of it. So
let me say a couple of things that like I love about being a father. First of all, and this is, and you know what I mean when I say this, like I sincerely love the relationship that each of you have with your mother. And because each of it is unique and cool and she's awesome. But in addition to that, the relationship that you guys have with each other is really special and unique. I know that you guys have fought in the past, I think, but oh my gosh, you guys like get along so well. The fact that you and Lincoln like live together and like each other, I think, is that still true today?
He cleaned the bathroom last night. We're good.
Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. But seriously, the fact that you guys get along, like you have no idea how much that warms my heart, because I know like over time, your mom and I know we're totally young chicks right now, but eventually we're going to get older and it's really going to be about you kids, having a relationship with each other. And, so it means, I think that's what I love the most is seeing the relationship that you guys have with each other and just seeing your growth. Like each one of you have grown into totally different and unique people, and you know yourselves. You're not like a cookie cutter of anybody. You're unique. You know what you guys want. You know what you guys enjoy and want to do, and you go out and do it. And like that just makes that you're just way ahead of the game, and I'm just really proud of you guys. As far as like what's the least thing, that I don't know, probably
4 a.m. piano lessons. You can say
it. I did do those. No, I know about being a father though. I think just the worry, just, you're always kind of like hoping everything's okay. I think there's been a few times where your mom and I have been pretty, frightened about you guys. And I wouldn't say frightened, that's the wrong word, but concerned. But like, you guys are all pretty solid. I like, you're remarkable people. And yeah, it's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to close it off, my dad never talks about himself on this podcast, or if he does, it's not in super detail. So I'd like to close this out with a little bit of an outro introduction.
Oh, no.
This podcast is hosted by Mike Leavitt. He's my dad, and in a world where masculinity is portrayed as all of these alpha males and the richest people in the world and the buffest people in the world and all of this fluff and grandeur, my dad has been an inspiration to me because of the freedom and the example he set for me. And both of my parents are absolutely amazing. My mom is a very advanced parent in that she never doesn't do the basics. And my dad has built a structure that allows us to be who we are today and has given the freedom. And we talk about all of these stories where I hear very successful people talk about, oh, my dad didn't believe in me, or my dad set my example for me by never being around. My dad has always been around as much as he can and has always believed in me to do whatever I put my mind to. And that's something that has allowed me the freedom to know myself and to continue to grow and to know that I have the potential to be even better than I am today. And so with that, this is the Great Podcast in the Sky, and If Love Remains. And we will see you on the flip side.
Love you, man.
You are listening to And If Love Remains.
First of 23 installments requested by Dr. Leavitt. Trying to be in compliance here because we're taking him and that whole organization down.